Hello class, my name is Gabby Gomez and this is my video blog assignment. Today I'll be answering the 3 questions that were asked, which is, so for the first question is, how have women's bodies been historically defined? Now, in history, women's bodies were known to be or said to be dangerous, according to Rose Waits' article. Now, in that article, she also talks about women's legal status, came from the belief that women's bodies were dangerous. So that means women's bodies were seen as property. And this comes way before legal things. So philosophers like Aristotle and many doctors from the 17th century, that's how they defined women's bodies. The second half of the question is, how did and does the virgin whore binary influence Mexican women, or the formation of identity in Mexican women? So as we know, the virgin is seen as pure and as someone that you should strive to be. They're seen as health and, it's kind of a master symbol, as Eric R. Wolf's article refers it to as a master symbol. And he mentions that the virgin stands for hope and health, which is kind of a weird way to put it, but that's just what you were taught in religion. Now, this kind of influences women or Mexican women's identity into a more negative spectrum, because as a Mexican woman, you don't develop the same thing or the same knowledge that other people develop, because they see sex as taboo. You're not allowed to talk about sex. You're not allowed to talk about how to take care of yourself as a woman. And you see more of that in Sandra Cisneros' article, where her belief was that because she would hide her body, and because she judged other females for how they exposed their body or how they chose to show off their body, that she would kind of belittle them and think of herself as in a higher ground as them. She would look down on them because they were okay with showing off their body, and that creates an outcast system for younger girls. And in her article, she also talks about her not understanding her body until she got way older, and her not exploring her body until she got way older. So I think that kind of influences Mexican identity in a more negative way, because as a Mexican woman, you're taught to believe not to look at your body, or not to explore your body in a way, or not to ask questions about your body, and that forms a misidentity on what a woman is supposed to be. Okay, so the second question is, according to Anzaldúa, what is Nepantla? Nepantla is an Aztec word that means being torn between or being in between something. The second question is, how did Nepantla define the realities of Las Pachucas? I feel like Nepantla defines the realities of Las Pachucas by being in between. So Las Pachucas were in between a culture. They were in between Mexican culture and they were between American culture, which they kind of developed to define their own culture, which led to them becoming Las Pachucas. Okay, so the third and final question is, provide a present-day example of Chicanas existing within Nepantla. One very, very big and very relevant example of Chicanas existing within Nepantla is being first-generation Mexican Americans, or coming to America, having immigrant parents coming to America, or having parents who were raised in Mexico and then coming to America. Now, this belief is accepting both Mexican and American cultures, being raised with a Mexican household, but then going to school and you're kind of exposed to a more American way of life, which is kind of what happens to a lot of people who are first-generation Mexican Americans. It's still wanting to accept both of the cultures and still honoring both the cultures. However, you kind of mix the cultures and it kind of becomes one. and that's what Nepantla is being in between the cultures. One example of how it is being a 23-year-old woman. One more specific example is being a 23-year-old woman wanting to move out of your house and wanting to start a life on your own, being able to afford it, and your parents kind of being against it, because in Mexican culture, it is very normalized that a woman will stay home until she is married, and she will live with her parents until she is married and moves in with her husband. However, in American culture, it's very normalized. It is very normalized to want to move out of your household at 18 and raising yourself at 18. In Mexican American culture, that is not. However, accepting both of these cultures and creating a mix of it is kind of what Nepantla is doing to the present day Chicana.